Okay, today's topic is how would I go about changing someone's mind towards fire in general? I mean, besides the whole can anyone's mind actually be changed at all issue. Hey, Zempuck here. So the reason of why I ended up upon today's question is simple. I was reading an article about financial independence, retire early, where a researcher interviewed more than 50 people in the community about our mentality. And when she came out of that experience, she said, still, and I quote, she's not entirely convinced, but did mention it has made her personal relationship with money better. And that led me to this thread of, well, how would I go about actually convincing someone that fire is something good and worthy to pursue? Of course, this isn't the first time I've pondered this line of thinking, right? Though I suppose personally I got here from a different direction. I understand that the topic of money in the US is at least fairly taboo, and I also don't think of myself as particularly persuasive as a person, okay? So I know I'm unlikely to convince anyone that I am the one that has it right, especially on a sensitive topic as money. However, practically speaking, I am retired and relatively early. It's been like almost a decade now. Wow. So even if I never had to convince anyone that I'm in the right, what I did have to do is at least, ruminate on this question so that people close to me can better empathize with me, right? Because even if I can't convince them outright, I had to make sure my loved ones better understand at least why I decided to get out of a rat race decades ahead of time, right? For me, I realized it just comes down to, honestly, asking a few questions. Maybe they seem like leading questions, but I think the answers will lead other people to whatever conclusions that they want, and hopefully ones that mirror, my own answers, obviously. Anyway, if you're intrigued by what I might say, please subscribe, like, comment, share, all that social media buzzwords, or whatever, because I'm rich enough for me, and I'll be great regardless. So the first question I would pose is, to other people is this. Would you go to work if your job suddenly stopped paying for it? If you said yes, sure, then maybe you do love your job and you should keep doing that, okay? Then I'm not going to convince anybody if you said yes, okay? Now, I think if you remove the monetary motive that drives most people to most people's jobs, which are regular jobs, honestly, the only people who really would keep doing what they're doing for zero pay would be in the creative areas. Like if you were, if you paint or act or whatever. Now, in this small group, I might even include academics, such as the researcher I mentioned in the intro. Okay, that lady picked the topic she wanted to research on, and I'm assuming she'd keep doing this type of work for perhaps not zero pay, but relatively low pay, as grad students get. I think the motivation there is simply out of personal pride and academic legacy, maybe, okay? But let me be clear, I do think this whole group is still very, very, very small, okay? They might be bigger than people who believe in fire, but they're still very small compared to society at large. Now, if you answered no, you would not go back to your job if they stopped paying for it, I wouldn't keep working, right? Then congratulations, you now understand why I left the rat race entirely. Because, of course, secretly people want to do, the same thing as me, I think, right? If you didn't have to think about paying your bills anymore, why would you still be operating within the system that's designed to keep you there, right? Unless you have straight up passion for every aspect of your current workplace. I think most people don't, so they would choose to exit. AKA, you could call it retirement, right? Which is also known as free time. And you would probably choose this option as early as you can, no? Second question I'd ask of the general public. That's, do you remember having any fun whatsoever, before you started your current professional path? Because the answer to this question is really directed towards, a lot of the majority of human beings, at least in the Western world, who will say things like, oh, but if you didn't have a job anymore, whatever will you do? How will you fill your time? To me, the answer has always been so incredibly obvious. What would I do? Oh, I don't know. Whatever I think is fun. because I thought that would be a pretty common answer, honestly, okay? Do most people think what they do at work qualifies as fun? Maybe some aspects, sure. For me, back when I had, a job, I like the problem-solving part. But at work, that part of the job is maybe, I don't know, 10 to 15% of the time that I spent there, right? The rest of it is mostly monotony, okay? So why would I settle for only 15% of my day being fun when it could be, okay, maybe not 100%, but certainly a vast majority, okay? I worked because I had to, nothing more. I try to have fun wherever and whenever I work too, but that was not the top priority when I had a job. Making money was at least, the top priority, at least for me, okay? Because I never felt some great love for the nature of my work, right? Money is what drives me, because money equals, again, freedom, again, which is also agency, right? All financial independence ever was or is, a translation of money into agency, into freedom. Freedom to do what you want. Is freedom boring? Well, sometimes. Is it scary? Of course, because, most of us are sort of out of practice having it, okay? I mean, think about that. When's the last time you had freedom to do as you please? How young did we have to go back collectively, right? But was that freedom, bad? For me, the answer is a resounding no, right? I used to have fun when I was a kid. It had nothing whatsoever to do with employment. A third question I would ask is, do you generally enjoy worrying about money? Because that's the norm in the world that I live in anyway, okay? An actual majority, depending on what studies you're looking for, it varies. Some people say 52%, some people say the low 60 percentage point range of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, right? How much they make is actually irrelevant, but instead, no matter what amount someone makes, majority of people spend it immediately because most people are very susceptible to lifestyle inflation, right? And that's just the paycheck to paycheck people, by the way. I'd guess the majority of the remainder of people aren't that much better. Maybe they have a little bit more of a cushion, but hardly anybody outside of the FIRE mentality group, okay, have enough of a cushion to just let go of their regular, boring, employer-based active income, to let it go entirely, right? Now, I'm not saying that if you're into FIRE, you won't have to worry about money ever again, okay? But that is the eventual goal. I personally, right now, worry as little about it as I can ever get. Again, it does not mean that I don't worry. That's just not me. But I worry very little. And I know in my heart, let's say worst case happens, right? Because I get all my income passively through the stock market. If the market crashed, okay, and my net worth plunged, that's definitely a possibility, okay? The rest of society, however, will be suffering most likely even more than I would. And if I'm the kind of person who's capable of, retiring decades earlier than most people, then in the event of a catastrophe, I'm pretty sure I can competently handle those types of unforeseen circumstances better than most as well. Okay. So, in conclusion, how many people do you think I've convinced that FIRE is the way to go? Off the top of my head, I would guess a handful at best, if I'm being optimistic, right? But frankly, I don't really mind, being in this tiny minority group, right? I always say this, people are dumb, but persons are still worth something. Individual people, persons, okay? I don't really care to convince lots of people, okay? Most people are followers. They will never, ever amount to much. That's just reality. I can't convince those people of anything. I can only ask questions so that they can find the answers for themselves, right? Hopefully over time, hopefully when their reality converges with, the answers that I've given, which are clearly the correct answers, the only correct answers, obviously. Anyway, feel free to yell at me below, because it's the internet. What do I care? Till next time, cheers, a la prochaine.